Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Saturday, December 21st at 0400 Zulu time. Which means it's 11 o'clock Eastern time. And I'm sitting here in my chemo chair, getting ready to go to bed. Falls in bed, and we were beguiled into staying up to watch this sort of late 80s, or hell, it may have even been the early 2000 Perry Mason special that was it was sort of like a borderline parody or self-irony, and it had a bunch of these character actors that you basically see everywhere, and it's always kind of fun to watch, and it was well done. So we stayed up and watched this thing till 10 o'clock, and and then he went to bed, and I came in here, and I was getting ready to do this thing. I had to check my email, of course, and things, and so meanwhile, I thought maybe I'd give you a brief account of the day, but perhaps it won't be all that brief, although I have no agenda today, so it might be brief. It seems Paul had to go to an employee meeting at the hotel today, and when he left on Saturday, they had the thing on the board that said, this thing was scheduled at noon today, noon on Friday. This is when he left Saturday, because he has Sunday through Saturday off, and then he goes back to work next Sunday. And but there's an employee meeting on Friday at noon, and they were going to talk about this new medical insurance business with the new medical insurance law that's been passed. And of course, actually, he falls into a category that's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, he's considered a full-time employee, and the outfit he works for has more than 50 full-time employees, and so they even though they've been given that year's pass, they've decided to offer them still consider offer them the same kind of insurance they been having, which is very good insurance. And yet, it turns out at the same time, given that since his income falls below a certain level, he may actually qualify for Medicaid, which is what we in the trade used to call welfare. I imagine a lot of people in the trade still call welfare. Well, if you need welfare, you need welfare. It's all right. So, Paul's not the kind of guy that's going to abuse that. So, although I ran into people that would. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so it turns out he went down there. He got all spiffed up and cleaned up and dressed up. And he left here at, let's see, this meeting was supposed to be at noon. So he left here around 11:30, because of the traffic and so forth. And just to get a mile and a quarter. But that's, believe you me, that sometimes takes 20 minutes to get down there. And he came back around. He showed back up here a little after 1 o'clock, and this thing was supposed to be a 2-hour meeting. And I said, "Oh, it was early." He said, "Well, they had moved it apparently, and nobody bothered to call him and tell him about it." So they'd had it at 9 o'clock, so 9 to 11 this morning, but they hadn't called him, and so he missed the meeting. But the general manager sort of walked him through the stuff, and he showed me the outline of stuff, which, at least as it stands right now, isn't all that different from what is the situation with him this current year in terms of the amount of money he has to contribute. And the only difference is that they were talking about maybe he wanted to look into getting on Medicare. Well, I guess with Medicare he wouldn't have to pay any premium like he's doing now. So, well, that's I can't give him any intelligent advice on this. So there it is. My plan with all of this nonsense is to hold on like grim death. Until I hit 65 and get on Medicare, and because I had an individual I had one of these oddball, very individual, not very individual, it was an individual major medical policy, and they weren't selling too many of those things, and I'd bought this thing around somewhere in the mid 80s, and of course the premiums go up periodically, up, and the last 2 years I had this thing, 4 years, it for a long time been like $1,200 a year, and this was sort of like $250,000 a year for whatever happened, and this is sort of like a catastrophe policy, and so I was paying $1,200 a year for this thing. It's like term life insurance is what it amounts to. I mean, it's the same sort of actuarial calculation. And okay. So then 1 year it went up to like $2,700. Okay, and paid that. Then the year after that was like $3,300, $3,500, and so I paid that. Then it stayed the same. Next year it was like $3,500. So the year, the final, that was the final year I had the policy, because the next year they wanted like $5,800. I thought, well, I can't swing that. And that was even before I had my access to my retirement money without penalty. So I couldn't do that. So that was that. So that's money down the rat hole, because fortunately I didn't have to use it. How should I feel? Should I feel elated, or should I feel sad? Should I have hope to get injured or sick? So anyway, I don't know what decision he's going to make. He'll be pondering this, whether he goes on Medicaid or keeps this, or God bless him. It's up to him. And meanwhile, I guess I'll get hit with the $570 to $600, tax. Thank you, John Roberts. On this for the next 3 years, and then when I get on Medicare, then I'll get on Medicare for what it's worth. Which actually, despite what people piss and moan about, it's pretty decent. The issue is finding somebody who'll take you, but it pays. I always said that if everybody paid me like Medicare, established rates, in other words, if everybody paid me at established Medicare rates, that would be completely fair. But of course, that's not how it works, so that's where all the pissing and moaning comes in, doesn't it? Okay. So today, my ex-wife and I had a very civil exchange, and I had been trying to encourage her to go into system preferences on her computer and adjust the microphone settings such that, this is counterintuitive, like so much of all this stuff is. Turning the input level down to a very, very low level. For example, my input level when I talk to her on FaceTime is set at 8% input. Well, hers had been set at 50%. Well, now Thomas and I had done a trial run on this because he came over and he helped set this stuff up for her. And he was at her place and he talked to me at my place and we did a preliminary setup. But for some reason, the problem wasn't happening the night he and I set this thing up. And so her input was set at 50%. Well, see, since Thomas had set it up at 50%, it was sacrosanct. Oh, Thomas had done it. Well, yes, he did. And, and yes. And that seemed very reasonable at the time. But clearly, it's time to make an experiment. Well, I finally got her to, I said, it's only going to take about 3 minutes. And by golly, she did this. She changed it. She dialed this thing down. And when she did, she dialed down to somewhere around 10%, maybe a little bit, maybe 12%. And when she did, a lot of the problems we were having went away. Now, I still have to wear my headphones when I talk to her. If she were to wear headphones, I think the problem would go away entirely, but she ain't going to wear headphones. So I think we've done maybe about as good as we can do on that. So that might be mission almost accomplished. Pache, George Bush, and David Cameron on that. So there we are. There we are on that one. We're around 52 degrees right now. Everything's pretty much melted. That's wonderful. Now I'm glad we had a slow melt ahead of all this rain because I think that may help in terms of stuff getting to the basement. And I think the slower all this happens, the better off we're going to be. So we'll find out, won't we? Here, as this stuff comes in. I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as they've been carrying on about. But what do I know? So now I'm reading on Sunday. I'm reading the Old Testament lesson on Sunday, which is Isaiah 7:10-16, and it's one of the classic parts of the Old Testament that are considered to be prophetic of the advent of Jesus Christ. I'm going to leave aside the Israeli/Syria political problem that was going on between, Ahaz, the king of, well, it wasn't Ahaz. Well, it was the king of Israel, the northern kingdom, and then the Syrian king. I'm not going to get into that. This was just before the northern kingdom was, captured and taken into exile. The northern kingdom, not the southern kingdom, Judah, which was the classic sort of story of exile in Babylon. because the northern kingdoms, the northern 10 tribes went off into the diaspora when the Assyrians got hold of them, and that was around 722 BC, and then the Babylonian captivity started around like 580 BC. So there's about 140 years difference there, and anyway, this is the classic prophecy, and of course we can get into how people interpret prophecy later here in a moment. But moreover, the Lord spake again unto Ahaz. Ahaz being the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah. Lord spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God. Don't tempt the Lord thy God. Saying, ask it either in the depth or in the height above. Well, if the Lord says you can tempt him, I guess you can tempt him. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. Ahaz is hedging his bets. Being very canny there, and and humble, and yes. And he said, Hear ye now, O house of David, is it a small thing for you to weary men, but ye will weary my God also? Meaning, I said I'm going to give you a favor. Don't gripe about it. Haven't we all heard that in daily life from other people? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. And here's the neat thing. Here's the neat thing. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. That's very neat. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. That's very reminiscent of the thing about John the Baptist, isn't it? But this isn't about John the Baptist. Well, if it's about anybody that comes later, but we can take into that later. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. Well, see, this gets into biblical interpretation, and now I have no problem with saying that that's a prophetic statement in the Old Testament about the advent or the coming of Jesus Christ. I don't have any problem with that. Now, there are a number of people that have a problem with that, to the extent that they would preclude people from having that or putting forth that kind of interpretation. They say, well, this was written at such and such a time and such a thing, and they weren't referring to anything that they weren't even thinking about the advent of a Messiah or Christ. They were just talking about somebody who's going to come along and help them out of their current troubles. Well, that's history's very contingent. It's the contingencies of history, and I understand that. I understand that interpretation, and that's certainly a reasonable interpretation. But to say that precludes any other prophetic, more extended prophetic interpretation, as opposed to, prophet. So you have prophecy here within arm's reach, and then you can have prophecy that goes out past that. So what they would do is they would preclude the prophecy that goes out beyond that, and generally also these folks that don't like that kind of a interpretation also have an agenda that just, first of all, they don't like the style of a lot of the people that have this kind of that hold these points of view. And unfortunately, quite honestly, I myself don't particularly like some of their styles. They wear loud pale blue polyester pants and suits, ruffled shirts. They walk around on a stage with microphones. But that doesn't mean that their points of view can't be taken seriously. And just because somebody's style of presenting themselves is offensive or comical or less than intellectually serious doesn't mean that you can't at least listen to the content of what they're saying. And so yeah, sure, that's a prophecy. Hell, that's the prophecy of the Virgin Mary, isn't it? Sure. I'll be interested to see if that comes out in the sermon though next Sunday. We'll find out, won't we? Stay tuned here. Well, I don't know. I may be just anticipating gravel under the brake pads when nothing's going to happen. So on that note, I'm going to say bye-bye, YouTubers. All righty. Have a good night's sleep. I'm going to try to here. All right. Bye-bye.